The biggest trade of the NHL offseason just happened as Erik Karlsson gets traded from the San Jose Sharks to the Pittsburgh Penguins, but that's not all. The Montreal Canadiens were involved as a third team as they were able to get rid of Mike Hoffman's contract, bring back Jeff Petry, and bring in a solid goaltender in Casey DeSmith, and I'm here to break that all down for you on this edition of Habs Digest. And as we get into this, a quick reminder to hit subscribe if you haven't already. We'd really appreciate it. Not going to harp on that too long. The Habs are involved in the Erik Karlsson trade, by far the biggest trade this offseason. The Norris Trophy winning defenseman for the San Jose Sharks gets flipped to the Pittsburgh Penguins for a lot of things. So let's just take a look at the trade. Pittsburgh receives Erik Karlsson with $1.5 million retained, Rem Pitlick from Montreal, Dylan Hemaluk from San Jose, and a third-round pick. San Jose gets a 2024 first, Michael Granlund, Jan Ruta, and Mike Hoffman from Montreal with no salary retained. Montreal takes on a 2025 second-round pick, Jeff Petry, once again, Casey DeSmith, and prospect Nathan Legare. So this is wild, completely wild. And I mean, Erik Karlsson, we knew he was going to get traded, but it felt like out of nowhere. We heard some rumblings this morning. They really want to get this deal done today, and they sure did. Erik Karlsson gets shipped to the Pittsburgh Penguins for a decent haul in return for San Jose. But what we're going to focus on here is Montreal's trade, because it's a little bit more of a question mark. Like, why really did they do this? And we'll probably have another video later, myself and Jesse, breaking that all down for you on why the Habs did it. But let's just show exactly what they got again, right? So the number one thing they were able to give away is Rem Pitlick, who they probably wouldn't have had room for anyway, and Mike Hoffman. Now, Hoffman's salary at $4.5 million for this year. Really not a good asset. They really wanted to get rid of that money. But who do they bring back? They bring back other money in Jeff Petry, a guy who they just traded away not that long ago. But here's the thing with Jeff Petry. He is 35 years old, and yeah, he is making quite a hefty amount of money over the next 2 seasons, over $4 million over the next 2 years. But he's still a very solid offensive producer. I mean, look at all that time with Montreal. His numbers really didn't drop off that much with Pittsburgh. And while a lot of Pittsburgh fans were maybe starting to turn on him, he is aging. He still has that skill. He still has that speed that we saw from him. And honestly, I think he's a much better fit on the right side than someone like David Savard. And what makes it a little bit easier to swallow is, regardless of if you're a Petry fan or not, as I'm sure a lot of us are very big Jeff Petry fans, except for maybe his last season in Montreal, Pittsburgh already ate 25% of that salary. His signing bonus is already signed. And as Eric Engels points out, if I can bring that up here, he believes the Canadiens will trade Jeff Petry. Not necessarily immediately, but likely before the season starts. Pittsburgh already paid Petry's $3 million signing bonus from Montreal, and Montreal can retain 50% in trading him out, making him only $2.34 million against the cap this season and next. So that kind of makes things make a lot more sense, right? They were able to get rid of Mike Hoffman, a contract that no team really wanted, but they were able to bring back a decent asset in Jeff Petry. And even if Jeff Petry doesn't find time to play in Montreal, which he very well could, I think he's better than, again, someone like Savard. The problem is he kind of blocks that right-hand side, right? Montreal has so many defensive prospects. It's like, is it really worth keeping Petry to block those guys even more, give Petry a bunch of ice time? Maybe not, but what could happen is a lot of teams would probably be willing to pay a decent amount, especially contenders. Even though Petry's 35, soon to be 36 years old, he's still going to be able to contribute for a very, very good team this season and probably next. And at his current price point of a lot of money, maybe not, because I think it's like $6.5 million and then $5 million next year. But with the salary retention and stuff, it's all weird. But it's a lot of money for a team to take on. But now that Montreal has taken his contract with the $3 million signing bonus paid, and they're able to retain 50%, say at the trade deadline or even early on in the season, some team who's going to say like $2.5 million per year for Jeff Petry for 2 years while he's still productive, that is a steal. And it really is a steal for a team that's trying to contend. So that really seems like a very solid possibility for Montreal going down the road. So I think this is just Kent Hughes trying to take on a guy who he's looking to flip. And if you'd see me looking down at my phone, I'm trying to see if there's kind of anything else coming from the Montreal Canadiens side, and nothing yet. No extra Petry flips right now, but really, really interesting move by Kent Hughes to take on Jeff Petry. But Petry's obviously not the only thing we got. We also got goalie Casey DeSmith. And this is a goalie that Montreal is bringing in. And Casey DeSmith, since he came up in the NHL, has been quite solid, really. I mean, he's had some interesting times with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, but he's now 31 years old. He's Pittsburgh's full-time backup, really, but he split the season pretty much last year with Tristan Jarry. And you can kind of see his numbers aren't the best. 3.17 GAA, 905 save percentage, and in 26 games the season before, 914, 279. He's a very, very solid goaltender. That's the thing. And he was like one of the top goaltenders in the AHL when he was there, but he's just a very solid goalie. And this kind of begs the question, though. Now Montreal has Jake Allen, they have Sam Montembeault, and they have Casey DeSmith. What do they do with Kaiden Primo? That, to me, signifies Kaiden Primo doesn't have a future with the Montreal Canadiens organization. Maybe he runs as a third. Maybe they look to trade Jake Allen and run with a Casey DeSmith and Sam Montembeault duo, because that would be a lot cheaper for this year with Montembeault not making much money, and Casey DeSmith's contract is actually only $1.9 million per year. So it's a very, very solid contract. It's much cheaper than Jake Allen, so it gives the Habs even a bit more cap flexibility if they're able to move on from Allen to another team, because realistically, Jake Allen, he thrives in that backup goaltender role. He's a very, very good goalie. Maybe not necessarily if he has to start 50, 60 games in a season. So he's still a very, very solid backup. Probably one of the better ones in the league with whatever team he goes to. And Monty has kind of proven like, hey, maybe Monty's the full-time goalie with Casey DeSmith as a backup. It certainly brings a bit more certainty to Montreal's goalie situation and maybe a bit more clarity of what's going to happen moving forward. And again, you bring in Casey DeSmith at a very low price tag just to kind of see what happens, right? You ride out this season with a couple decent goalies. You never know. I don't think Montreal's trying to compete or anything, but it's never a bad move to bring him in. And again, if another team wants Casey DeSmith, who's a very, very solid backup and could even be a starter himself if put in the right situation, teams might be willing to pay for that. And again, just $2 million is his contract. What if Montreal retains 25% of that and some contender can pay $1.5 million for Casey DeSmith? Like, I think this trade from Kent Hughes is really asset management, right? He gets a second-round pick that we'll see how that pays off in the future, because we know Lane Hudson was the second-round pick that we got in the trade with the Oilers when we shipped off Brett Kulak. So second-round picks are not nothing. They're very, very good, but also bringing in Petry and DeSmith, who can easily be flipped to another team, is just really, really good moves by Kent Hughes, if you ask me. And the final thing I wanted to talk about is Nathan Legare from Montreal himself. He's a 6-foot, 205-pound prospect for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's a right-hand shot, plays right wing. He's a former third-round pick in 2019. Now, the problem with Nathan Legare, he had some real good numbers in the queue, but you can see he was drafted in 2019, and the immediate season after that, he saw a sharp decline in production in the queue, and then even the next year, an even sharper decline in production. And in the AHL, I mean, this is a player here who was known for his big shot and his big offensive ability, but he just has not been able to put things together in the AHL. But at worst, Nathan Legare is a Montreal native who's going to play for Laval and maybe end up getting a shot at some point with the Habs. He still has like a decent chance at making the NHL at some point in his career just because of his pure offensive ability. Whether it's with the Habs or not, who knows? But at the very least, it's AHL depth. And he's going to be able to play in his hometown, play for the Habs organization. Probably a dream of his. I'm not going to pretend I know what his dreams are, but you got to think a kid from Montreal getting traded back there, it's got to be pretty good news for him. So all in all, what do I think of this trade? Let's just go back to the start. I'm not going to focus too much on the Pittsburgh thing. They get Erik Karlsson. The Sharks get a first-round pick that ends up being top 10 protected. Michael Granlund, Jan Ruta, and Mike Hoffman. Not the worst return ever for San Jose, especially for a guy who's getting paid $10 million a year. Well, I guess a little bit less than that now that San Jose retained it. But I think Montreal are actually, Pittsburgh's the winner of this trade, let's be honest, but Montreal is a sneaky winner in this trade. A second-round pick, Jeff Petry, who they could easily flip and is still a solid player, Casey DeSmith, who is a very solid goalie, and Nathan Legare. They get all this from Pittsburgh, and what did they have to give up? Mike Hoffman and Rem Pitlick. That's it, to bring all of this in to be a bit of a facilitator for Pittsburgh in this trade. They gave up nothing. They gave up a contract that they wanted to give up. They were maybe willing to pay to give up Mike Hoffman. But what happens? They get Petry, a flippable asset, DeSmith, a flippable asset, some AHL depth, and Nathan Legare, who could maybe step up and make the big leagues, and a second-round pick. Hard to look at this as a loss for Montreal. Super fun trade, super awesome, and I'm sure we'll be having another video later breaking it down even further. But for now, that'll do it for this edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Help us hit 7,000 subscribers. We really appreciate the support. I'm Josh Gosse. We'll catch you in the next one.